Hello and welcome to this video. In this video, we will deploy an application that having the microservices architecture that would be deployed into the containers. First, we will push the Docker images into the Azure Container Registry. Then we'll create the Ingress controller. Then we will deploy the external DNS. And finally, we will deploy the application into the Kubernetes using the kubectl command. So I have this solution. In this solution, if you see, I have one web front end application having the Docker file, and second one is one API. Okay, so similarly, I can have multiple APIs and make sure these APIs should be Docker enabled. How you can make it Docker enabled? Let's see one example. Let's create one API. Select the ASP.NET Core Web API. On next, give the name my API2. Then make sure it should be Docker enabled. HTTPS is not required. I can select the Linux and then I can create. But in this video, I will use the only two applications for your understanding how we can deploy into the multiple containers. I call this my web API inside the index page. This is the web API. So the purpose is that I will deploy this API into the container, and this would be the URL of this web API that here I'm going to call inside the index.cshtml page. I'm just using the default code. Weather forecast is the API. It gives the result of the weather. So here you can see the get method that would be called inside the index.html. So if you see, I have already created the images. If I see, let me run the command docker images. So you can see the images already there, my web API and web front end. So how you can create the image? This is the command docker build t web front end, docker build web API. So you can run this command here, build -t and give the name my web API and space dot, that will take all the files. Similarly for web front, you can replace web front end and space dot. That these two commands will give the two images. You can see here. So here what I'm going to do, I will deploy these two images inside the Azure Container Registry, not in the Kubernetes. Okay, so let's do one thing. Let's create this DNS zone first. So I have one domain, singletoninfosoft.com. I'm using this domain, and this is the command that I'm going to run. Here I can run this command. So let's wait. It has been created. If I go here, so you can see the DNS zone. Let's refresh. It may take few seconds. Yeah, here you can see one DNS zone has been created. If you see inside here, currently you can see only two items, two record set, and these are the name servers that you need to configure into your DNS provider. I have already configured this DNS provider. So let me show you where I have configured all these name servers. So if I go into the GoDaddy account, I purchased this domain from the GoDaddy account. Here if you see the DNS, let me go into my products. Here I can see domains, and in the DNS Here you can see all the name servers. These are the same whatever you can see here. As I had already added these name server into this DNS provider, you can see same here. Okay, so we have done this setup. Now let's create the container registry. So this is the command that I have already created. You can run this command to create the container registry into this terminal window. Here you can put this command. Make sure this admin should be enabled. And command is ACR create. Then give the name of the container registry and give the resources name. RG1 is there. ASCII is standard and admin, and should have the parameter admin enabled. So once you run this command, you can see container registries here that I had already created. So in the repository, currently we don't have anything. We will check here in the repository whatever the image would be pushed through the command will be appeared here. And I have created Kubernetes service as well. Here if you see, this is the Kota Kubernetes cluster 3. This Kubernetes service I have already created currently, if you see in the services ingress. So these are the default services. Now let's do one thing. These are the images name, my front end and my web API. So what we need to do, we need to create the tag names, because we need to push these images inside the container, and it should have this name. That is the login server name. Login server name you can get from here. If you go into the container registry, inside the container registry you can see the login server name. This is the same login server name you need to put here, and give the image name and give the version, and create the tag name for all the APIs whatever you have in your solution. So my web API, this is the existing image, and I will give the name again, the login server name and image name followed by the version. So let's run these two command. You can run this command here. Let me just erase this one. Here I can put the tag name. Yes, that has been created. Second one is my web API. So these two tags has been created with this name. These are the new names. Okay. So what you can do now, you have to log in into the Docker, because I need to push these images into the Kota container registry. So I need to log in. Just take the command, copy here, press enter. Here you need to put the username. So username you will get from here only. If you go inside the container registry, so you can see one menu, access key. In the access key you can copy the username, paste it here, and password as well. You can get the password from here. Copy the password, put it here. So once I press enter, you can see login succeeded. Now I can push these two images. Let's copy the command. Command is docker push Kota container registry .azure acr.io /wavefront and :v1. That is actually tag name that we had created. That is the same tag name. So you can understand why we created the tag name, because we need the image name in this standard format. Copy the command, and if you press the enter, you will see this image being pushed into the container registry. That is done. Now take the second one, paste it here, and you can see mounted from wave front end. You can see that has been completed. if I go inside the repository, here you can see both the images. If you go inside the image, so you can see version as well. In the version, you can see the Docker pull command. Actually, the container registry is a private Docker. So therefore, we have pushed all these two images inside the Docker container registry. Now I need to connect with Azure Kubernetes Services, AKS. So I will use the command AKS to connect. So I can copy this command. Why I am connecting to Kubernetes service? Because I have to run the kubectl commands to manage the Kubernetes cluster. So copy it and paste it here. Press key. You can see it give the path. A connection has been created. Here, if you want to see the path, you can see the path as well. It created a directory here. If you want to see, I can show you. So here you can see configuration file. Okay, now we need to create the Ingress controller. Why we are creating the Ingress controller? Actually, Ingress controller is an API object that handles the load balancer request that coming through the HTTPS or HTTP URL, and Ingress controller providing the routing rules for the receiving request on the load balancer. It's just mapping your request to the appropriate DNS record. This typically uses the HTTPS and HTTP protocols to facilitate the routing. And if I say, and Ingress is a very good choice if you are working for the production environment. So let's create the namespace first. So I can copy the command here. Command is kubectl create namespace ingress basis. So ingress basis is our namespace. So it's good practice if you put your all the resources inside the namespace. So without namespace also you can work, but it's better to put all your resources inside a particular namespace to identify your resources inside the cluster. So you can see a namespace has been created. Now add a helm repository. We need to add the helm repository. What is the helm? Helm is actually the package manager for Kubernetes services. So this is the command to create the helm repository. I am giving the name ingress ngx, and this is the part where it's taking the packages. So I can run this command. So I can copy it. It say already exists with the same configuration. Actually earlier I had already created this one, so it's fine, no issue. And then I can run the repository update. Then use helm to deploy the nginx ingress controller. So nginx is the name of the ingress controller. So this is the command to deploy the nginx ingress controller. And here you can see the replica count 2. I can change the count based on your requirement. You can change the replica count. Copy it, paste it here. It has been created. Now I have to set up the permission. I have to assign the managed identity of clusters node pool DNS zone controllers to give the rights to custom domain DNS zone. Okay, so here are the set of variables. So if you see, these are variables. So I'm taking the tenant ID, then subscription ID, and user client ID. To get that tenant ID, this is the command add account show subscription. Then I've given the name of the subscription. So from here you can get the name. This is the subscription. This is the name that I have put it here, and it gives the tenant ID actually. Then I need the subscription ID in the variable. We need user client ID. To get the user client ID, this is the command Azure AKS show name Kota Kubernetes cluster 3. This is the cluster that we had created under the RG1 group. You need to add the parameter query, and in a query what it will return the client ID, and we need the DNS ID. By using all these IDs, we will assign the managed identity. Okay, so copy all this command and you can put it here. It's reading one by one. Yeah, now it's done. So we have taken all these values inside the variable. Then you can run this command. Now I'm creating the role assignment. Copy it. Yeah, that has been created. Now we need to deploy the external DNS. So why we need external DNS? Actually, external DNS set up the DNS records at DNS provider external. So why we need external DNS? So that the external providers can discover your Kubernetes services and allows the controlling of the DNS records to be done dynamically. So let's create the external DNS. This is the command. We need to add the helm repository first. You can put it here. It's already exists with the same configuration. So that is okay. Earlier I had already created it, and you can run the repo update command. Helm is the package manager. I have set up already on my system. If you don't have set up, then you can set up the helm. Now use helm to deploy an external DNS. So using this command, helm install external DNS and give the name under the namespace ingress basic that we had created. Set provider is Azure. Text owner ID that I have given the cluster name. Set policy sync. Resource group I have RG1, and tenant ID is the same that we have fetched from here. That will take the variable from here, and subscription ID also will be used from here, and managed identity extension true, and Azure assigned identity ID is the user client ID that we will get from here. Okay, so let's copy the command. Run the command. Here you can see that is completed. To verify the external DNS as setup run. So if I can copy this command just to validate, let's run it. It's a yes. I can see the pod. This is the pod running. This is the running pod. So that is done. Now actually we will deploy the application from Azure Container Registry to Azure Kubernetes cluster. So we have two YAML files. YAML file is actually the configuration file. You can easily read. Let me show the files. Inside this command, we have my web API, web front end API. Let's read this file. Here we will deploy the web front end, and this is the image. From this image, that is reside Azure Container Registry, and if you see service name is web front end, I have given the service name. That would be running port 80. Okay, so these are two things: deployment, kind is the deployment, and the service. And this is the service name. So I will use this command from front end application, and similarly I have API YAML files. This is also reading the image from the Azure Container Registry and will deploy to the Kubernetes cluster. Okay, so run these two commands. You can copy and deploy it. Does not exist. Okay, because I have put inside the folder cd cd. Okay, now run the command again. You can see created. Okay, so that has been deployed. Now let's deploy the web API. Okay, that is also completed. Now let's deploy the wavefront ingress. Let me explain you this one. Let's deploy this one. So this will deploy. Let me give the name API and web. So the important thing, the kind is ingress. So this is just the routing file. You can consider this is a routing files rules you can see here. So these are the rules. If the request come for the web API, so this service would be used, and if the request is for API, this service would be used at the port 80. Okay, so let me run this command. But before running this command, I want to show something. If you go inside the DNS zone, currently you can see only 2 record set. Only 2 record set are there. Okay, so let me run this command. What happened? That is the beauty of the external DNS. How external DNS helping to create the DNS records. Let me copy this name. So see it again. Here only 2 record set are there. Now I will run this YAML file. This is actually ingress controller. So this will actually create the routing rules. So let's use this command. Press enter. It's a created. Okay. So let me go inside the DNS zone. Let's refresh. Yes, record sets have been created. You can see A and TXT record set for API and for web. So we are good now. You can see. So if you want to see the running pod, so let's run this command. It will give the running pods. So these are the running pods. So the important thing, web API and web front end. So these 2 running pods are also there. So if you can get the services as well. It will give the running services. So these 2 services are, you can see here. So let me copy this URL. Let me put it into the address bar. Okay. Now you can see. So this is the web. Now let's take API. Put it here. And I need to give the controller name. Then you can see. So that is the way you can get the API. And in DNS you can see the different record sets. So that is a way to deploy the application into the Kubernetes that having the multiple microservices. But see one thing, if you see that is not a secure. So what we will do, we'll make it secure. I will show how we can achieve this one using the certificate. I will show in the next video. Before going to the next video, let me just show some more items. Like here, if you see in the Kubernetes service, in the services and ingresses, you can see multiple services. Only we will have one load balancer URL, that is the ingress and the next controller that we had created under the namespace ingress basis. So that is only one load balancer. So whatever request coming on that load balancer, it's redirecting to the appropriate DNS routing rules. So ingress handling all these requests, and you can see these the services that we had created. So that's all in this video.